Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you once again for joining me for another episode of the Mr. Healthy Habits Show. It's greatly appreciated as always. Today, we are going to continue our discussion on the Tao Te Ching and deepen the topic a little bit here and discuss how we can go about living for one another rather than living for ourselves and the benefits of such a life. We are also going to discuss how to know when you've done enough and the job is finished, because there's always more that can be done, and we need to know when to get out of our own way in life and just allow the universe to work itself through us. But before that, I want to remind you all to follow me on Instagram at philosophical.reminders. I'm posting a lot of great content on there daily if you like this kind of thing. A lot of philosophical quotes and memes and things that will help to brighten your day and give you perspective on the coming week, the coming days, and your interactions that you come across in life in general. It's helped me quite a bit to look at this stuff and to post it daily, and I hope it does for you too. Also, all these podcasts are available on YouTube as well. My YouTube channel, Mr. Healthy Habits, and anywhere you podcast, you can find this. So please subscribe. I would greatly appreciate that. It really helps the show. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get on into it. So in the Tao Te Ching, there is a great passage that goes something to the effect of, the universe is eternal because it does not live for itself. Now, what exactly does that mean? What exactly does that mean? That means that if we want to live a life that is going to be remembered, a life that is going to have profound influences and effects on people, a life that is going to compel my kids to one day share my story with their kids so that I'm not forgotten, so that we go on living, because at the end of the day, that's all this biological construct that we are wants to do, is survive. That's where we come up with this concept of a soul and an afterlife. It's just our attempt to psychologically find a way where we can survive after death. So if you do want your soul to live on, if you want your purpose to live on, then it's important that we drop all of our own concerns and wants and desires and focus on living for others. So I'm going to tell you what I mean now here in a story. A very personal story that I have from when I was a kid that was something that I'll never forget. So when I was in the third or fourth grade, we're talking, almost 30 years ago at this point, I was a pretty heavy kid. I was a pretty overweight, heavy kid, as I was through much of my childhood. And I remember we had a PE class, and this lady that was the PE teacher, she was just a battle axe of a lady. I mean, let me tell you, just the kind of person that I've told you before that just needs a hug in life. You know what I mean? One of those types of people that you can tell is just bitter about the world for one reason or another. And the important thing to remember with people like this is understanding, is to understand why they are the way they are. It's just a series of cosmic events and experiences and influences in their lives that have led them to become the people that they are, and we wouldn't have been any different had we been born in their shoes. But getting back to the story here, I was unable to run a mile in under 9 minutes. And in order to progress in her PE class, you had to be able to do that. So much so that she required every kid that was in the class that was not able to run the mile in under 9 minutes to come back to that class every single day after school and run the 9-minute mile. And we were to run that mile every single day after school until we were able to do it under 9 minutes. And then we got to go home after school finally. So me and a couple of friends of mine were among the kids that couldn't do it in class and had to come after school every day to run it. A friend of mine, after a few tries, was able to do it. He finished the 9-minute mile and was able to go home. Me, however, I was still stuck there wondering if I was ever going to be able to make it out and what was going to be my fate. I mean, was I ever going to make it out of after school detention because I couldn't run this 9-minute mile because I was just too heavy? My friend, I'll never forget him. His name was Steve McGow. And he decided one day, he came to me after class and said, Jesse, today is the day that you're going to finish this 9-minute mile. You are not going to have to do this again after today. I promise you that. So I tried to tell him, Steve, you know what? It's cool, man. Don't worry about it. You don't have to stay, dude. You can go home. You know, you've already done it. This is my thing that I've got to do. I'll stay and I'll do this. And he said, hey, Jesse, man, I want to play with you after school, man. I mean, I don't want to leave you here stuck having to do this. You know, I'm going to help you and we're going to finish this today. And I remember the PE teacher even telling him, Steve, you need to go home. You can't stay here. You know, you've already done this. I want you to go home. And he refused. He told her, no, this is after school. And if I want to stay here and run this mile, I can do it. There's nothing that you can't keep me from doing this. And so reluctantly, she gave in and she let him stay. And I remember running those 4 laps with Steve. Sweetest thing a kid could ever do for me, man. I mean, we ran those 4 laps and I remember the teacher calling out the time as we were rounding the last half of the last lap, and it didn't look like I was going to make it. I was tired. I was exhausted, breathing heavy, and I just knew once again I was going to fall short. And Steve, running next to me, looked at me and said, Jesse, give me your hand. And I gave him my hand and he pulled me along that last lap and made me run faster than I thought I possibly could. And with Steve's help and by the grace of God, I made it. I made it and finished that 9-minute mile and was able to go home and never had to do that again. And because of the kindness of Steve's heart, because he did for others instead of thinking of himself, because he could have went home and went to a friend's house and played video games or whatever, but instead of doing that, he chose to put his own wants and desires aside and stayed after school to help me out. And this was almost 30 years ago, and I've never forgotten it. I've never forgotten that. I never will. I'll probably remember that until the day I die. And that is the example here that I can choose now to provide you guys with the message that I'm trying to convey here when I say that the universe is eternal because it does not live for itself. Steve's memory will live on as long as I do and as long as this podcast is around, because he chose to not live for himself. He chose to help me out. Since then, I've lost contact with Steve, but I can tell you this, I'll never forget him or what he did for me. It's an inspiring story in my life, you know, that reminds me to put my own needs and wants aside to do for others. And I can also tell you that if Steve ever needed a favor from me, he definitely has someone that will lend him a helping hand. And that is the idea behind this story, behind this concept, is that if we decide to live for others and drop our own concerns and desires and attachments and aversions for the sake of others, they will remember you. They will remember you and they'll have nothing but good things to say about you. They may tell a story about you one day in their podcast or on their YouTube or on their social media. You'll have a deep friendship with someone that will last regardless of whether you lose contact with that person or not, and someone that will always be willing to lend you a helping hand. See, the passage from the Tao Te Ching that references this goes something to the effect of, the sage pulls himself back but ends up in front. So the idea behind that is that when we pull ourselves back and allow other people's ideas and concepts and wishes to flourish and help them achieve their goals, rather than develop this me first mentality that is all too pervasive in the world these days. Everyone seems to have this me first mentality where they want to be first and want their ideas first and want their concerns and their desires first. See, the idea here is when we pull ourselves back from that and help others be first, then we can lead a life in harmony, one of peace, one from the heart, one that will be appreciated by everyone else around us, that will in the end up putting us in front because we did for them. A favorite quote of mine, I believe it's from the Bible, goes something to the effect of, "And the first shall be last, and the last shall be first." So now, one of these days, if we do end up passing on and reach some type of heavenly beyond, the promise is that those who came in last, those who got in line last, those who put themselves last shall be first. And those who will always put themselves first, those who put themselves at the front of the line, those that don't ever let anyone in front of them on the road, or things of that nature, shall be last. The first shall be the last shall be first, and the first shall be last. It's also about accepting the fact that there are over 7 billion other people on the planet. Maybe our ideas and our concerns and our wants and desires aren't the most important. Maybe they're not the most important. Maybe they're not the best. Maybe our idea about how a project should work isn't the best. Maybe our concerns above the person next to us aren't exactly the best. I mean, maybe when you're driving home and you see that guy that's trying to get in front of you and you're thinking, oh, me first, and you don't want to let that person in, maybe that person's headed to the hospital for something. I mean, we've no idea. There's so many different other people out there with different stories. It's wrong of us to always assume that our own concerns and desires come first. There's another passage in the Daoism where they talk about how a wise man will hear of the Tao, the way, and take it seriously and practice it and try to live it. An average man will hear of the Tao and the way and then think, well, hey, there's some good ideas there, but maybe there's other things out there. Maybe there's other things out there. I'll look to explore that too. But an unwise man will look at the situation and say, that's crazy. What are you saying, Jesse? You mean don't put yourself first? That's ridiculous. I want to get home. I don't know what that other person's doing. Me first. That is the thinking of an unwise man, because in a greater context, if you actually pulled yourself outside of the situation and saw that person there next to you trying to get over and were told why they were trying to get home and had a better perspective on the situation, you might decide to let them in. You might decide to actually let them in and let them go about their day and just accept harmony and peace and the fact that it was just part of the day. And the most important thing here is to just not let yourself be bothered by it. I mean, why do we have to be bothered by it? Because someone got in front of us, Even if they get in front of you and then they start to drive slow and the gap between them and the car in front is widening, that doesn't have to bother us. We very well can try to maneuver and get around them so we can go about and get in front of them and go about our day, since they're obviously not interested in driving as fast as we are. But that doesn't mean that we have to take issue with it and pull them out of the background and into the foreground and judge them and be bothered. You see, if we help others achieve their goals, then our goals will be met too. Just as Steve believed that if he helped me achieve my goal and helped me finish that last lap in time, then we can go play. We can go play football or video games or whatever, I mean, he just wanted his friend there with him for the afternoon, wanted to help me. And his goal was met by helping me achieve my goal. And that is one of the most important lessons that I've taken from this series of lectures. Something that's I found very profound, that I will practice as I go about my day and try to take that with me throughout life. See, another idea that was shared by Mr. J. Garfield in the series that I heard on the Daoism that also resonated pretty deeply with me was that if you want others to cooperate with you, you can't always put yourself first. You can't always put yourself first if you expect other people to cooperate with you. I mean, why should somebody help you build something? What's in it for them? Everybody always wants to know what's in it for them. It's when we put others first that they in turn will look at us and decide that they're going to help us and put us first for once. Like, for example, how I've been working on building my Instagram page at philosophical.reminders. I've been putting a lot of good content on there, so I encourage you to take a look when you get a chance if you really are into this philosophical type of stuff and personal development and self-growth and whatnot. Some of the ideas that I got while doing some research on how to make this thing grow is really what you've got to do is make sure that you're active on other people's accounts and like and comment on their posts. And I encourage you to do the same for mine. Please. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. So I started doing this in practice, and soon it dawned on me, you know what? I should just be doing this because it is a nice thing to do, because it feels good to do it. Let it come from the heart and do it because you want to see other people grow their pages. You want to see other people's success happen for them. I'm not the only person that's putting an effort into this and working hard. There's a lot of people out there trying to build a personal development or self-growth or philosophical page, starting out right now just as I am, doing the same type of things that I am, and I wish them all the success in the world, and I want to help them build their page. And so I'll like and I'll comment on their stuff with as much of my heart as I can offer. And I hope that they do the same. But if they don't, that's quite all right, because it feels good to do it. It feels good to help other people build what I'm hoping to build. And I hope that people can only just recognize that in me. Maybe people will see that in me and then see that I really am genuinely trying to do this so that I can share what I've learned that has benefited me, so that it can benefit others. I mean, the world is such an uptight, wound up place sometimes, and I'm a big believer in that, the fact that we just need more introspective thought, more self-examination, more peace from within, rather than trying to make the world outside what we need it to be okay inside. That is where we go wrong. That is where we go wrong. That is why we have such political discourse in this country today. That is why there is just so much politics in the world. Is because people want to believe that the answers to their inside issues are on the outside, and only if they can make everyone behave and act the way that they need them to be okay inside, then they can be happy inside. But no, the world is the way it is. Miyamoto Musashi, accept everything just as it is. Everything is within. You need to find that peace and that harmony within yourself. So I know I did say that we were going to discuss also in this podcast how to know when you've done enough. And I've got a really good personal story here to share with you guys on this one. It is going to be about my personal weight loss journey and the struggles that I've had knowing when enough is enough. But for now, I thank you for joining me here on another episode of the Mr. Healthy Habits Show. I appreciate you subscribing to my podcast wherever you're listening, and liking or thumbs upping or whatever you can do to help out the show is also appreciated. Thank you very much. Check out my @philosophical.reminders once again. I hope you all are having an amazing day. I hope it's been a great week for you guys. It's been an amazing morning and an amazing week here for me, and I look forward to an amazing weekend and recording more of these episodes here for you guys. We will get into my weight loss story here and how to know when enough is enough on the next podcast. I'm pretty sure this series of the Daoism is going to turn into a 7-part series possibly. So you guys have a great day, and thanks so much for joining me, man. Take care.